These are instructions on how to make a cloth face protector. The materials that you will need will be fabric for the main mask, 9 by 14 inches. It needs to have a pattern to it, and it needs to be 100% pre-washed woven cotton fabric. So something with a pattern, like any of the above. No solid colors, no blue and white patterns. This is to avoid confusion with medical grade masks. Also, no knit fabrics. So something that's stretchy like this is a no-go. The next thing that you will need is material for your nose piece. So that's either a 4 by 1¼ inch piece of fabric or a piece of twill tape that's 3/4 inches wide by 4 inches long. You also will need ties. The preference is 1/2 inch grosgrain ribbon. Alternately, you can use 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch cotton twill tape or bias tape, or binding made from the same fabric that you use for your mask out of 1 inch wide strips, and you turn them into binding. Today, I'm going to be using this bias tape because that's what I had on hand. Step 1. Cut your fabric to 9 inches by 14 inches. Step 2. Fold your fabric in half, right sides together, like so. Step 3. Sew around the open edges with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Leave 1 to 2 inches open on the side so you can turn it right side out. Step 4, turn it right side out. Just wiggle it on out. Turn out the corners and go press it flat. When you press it flat, make sure that you turn in where your hole is that same 1/4 inch seam allowance, so you can then top stitch this closed. Step 5. Prep for your pleats. From the bottom, we're going to place pins at the 2 inch mark, the 3½ inch mark, and the 5 inch mark. Try if you can to get 3 pins in one color and 3 pins in another so you can decipher between the different markings. Two inches, three and a half inches, and 5 inches. Next, you'll place your opposite color pin 1 inch down from the pins you've already placed, like so, and then repeat on the other side with the same measurements from the bottom: 2 inches, 3½ inches, 5 inches, and then 1 inch down from each previous pin. Step 6. Create pleats by folding the top pin to the next opposite color pin and matching them up. As I match them up, I like to then pull out one of the pins and replace it so that way it pins my fold or pleat in place. Then repeat for the next 2 pairs of pins. Top pin meets the opposite color pin. Pull one out, replace to hold it in place. You'll notice that the pleats come down, fold in, come down, fold in. And then you repeat this process on the other side. Once your pins are all in place, your pleats should each be approximately 1/2 inch apart. Step 7. Sew your pleats so that way they're all together on each side of the mask. Once sewn, your mask should measure about 3.5 to 4 inches by 8.5 inches. The reason I say 3.5 to 4 is because depending on how accurate your pleats are, there's a little wiggle room there. Step 7, your ties. You're going to need 2 lengths of 48 inches of grosgrain ribbon that's 1/2 inch wide, or alternately twill tape or bias tape. I have bias tape because that's what I had on hand, and I'm just gonna stitch it closed so it functions more like a solid ribbon. Once I do that, I'm going to find the center of my ribbon and also find the center of the sides of one of my masks, and I'm gonna just pin it in place like so and stitch it on in like a really long rectangle so that way all the edges are completely sewn down. You can also reinforce the top and bottom for longevity. When you're finished stitching the ties on in place, they'll look like this. All the way around the edges, reinforced, bottom and top. Step 8, your nose strip casing. I've chosen to use a piece of fabric cut to 4 inches long, 1.25 inches wide. I have then ironed down 1/4 inch in on the length of each side. This gives me a 3/4 inch by 4 inch strip of fabric. You can also use a 3/4 inch wide piece of twill tape. You're going to find the center of the top of your mask, and 1/4 inch down from the top edge, you will place your piece of fabric like so and pin it in place. You're then going to stitch around 3 sides of this strip, leaving one end open. And there you have it. Thanks for joining me.